Have you ever walked through an ancient stone archway and felt the air around you shift? There's a strange sense of stepping across a threshold, not just in space, but in time, a fleeting connection to those who walked the same path centuries, even millennia ago. These structures are more than just architectural marvels. They are silent witnesses to history, guardians of secrets, and yes, portals. Each archway we'll explore today holds a story, a mystery, a doorway into a world long gone but not forgotten. And across the globe, from dense jungles to wind-swept deserts, these incredible passages have stood against time, waiting for us to listen to what they have to say. We're about to embark on a journey to 30 of the most intriguing archways and portals ever built by ancient hands. These aren't just relics of stone and mortar, they are invitations. Invitations to walk alongside Roman legionnaires, to stand in the shadow of Maya ritual gateways, to gaze up at soaring Islamic arches that seem to touch the heavens. Some were built for ceremony, some for defense, some for reasons we still don't fully understand. And each one offers us a chance to step out of our own time and into the heart of civilizations that shaped our world. So come with me, let's trace the curves of stone carved by hands that believed in magic, power, and the divine. Let's uncover the hidden symbols, the astonishing engineering, the stories etched into every surface. This is more than a tour of ancient sites, it's an exploration of human ingenuity, wonder, and the timeless desire to build something that lasts. By the end of our journey, you won't just see these archways as beautiful ruins. You'll feel them as living gateways, and perhaps, like so many before us, you'll find yourself forever changed by what lies on the other side. Our journey begins not with a whisper, but with a roar. In the sun-baked hills of the Greek Peloponnese stands our first portal, a structure so formidable it has guarded its secrets for over 3,000 years. This is the Lion Gate, the majestic and only entrance to the mighty Bronze Age citadel of Mycenae. Picture a massive, monolithic threshold built from enormous blocks of stone, so heavy and precisely fitted that later civilizations would believe only the mythical Cyclopes could have lifted them. And towering above it all, a breathtaking triangular slab of limestone. Carved into this slab are two lionesses standing tall on their hind legs, their powerful forepaws resting on a single sacred altar. Their heads, now lost to time, were once turned to face all who approached, a silent but undeniable challenge from a civilization that believed itself to be descended directly from the gods. This wasn't just a city gate, it was a monumental statement of power constructed around 1250 before the Common Era. To pass under the gaze of those lions was to enter the domain of kings who commanded vast armies and controlled trade routes across the known world. The Mycenaeans were the powerhouse of their age, and this gate was their emblem, a symbol of their invincibility. The lions themselves are thought to represent a powerful goddess, perhaps a precursor to the later Greek Hera, acting as divine guardians for the royal family that resided within. Every trader, every diplomat, every soldier who passed through this portal understood one thing instantly. They were in the presence of greatness and the stories this stone could tell. This is the very heart of Homer's epic tales. Walk through this archway and you're stepping into the world of the Iliad and the Odyssey. This was the kingdom of the legendary King Agamemnon, the man who led the 1,000 ships to Troy to reclaim Helen. While the historical truth behind the myth is complex, the sheer scale of the citadel and the treasures found within its royal graves confirm a reality every bit as rich and powerful as the poetry describes. The Lion Gate is more than an architectural relic. It is a direct physical link to a heroic age of warriors, poets, and epic cycles, a permanent gateway to the very dawn of Western literature. From the myth-shrouded gates of Mycenae, we travel forward over 1,000 years and into the heart of a different kind of empire, one built not on legend but on unassailable military might. Standing in the Roman Forum, the very center of the ancient world, is our second gateway, the majestic Arch of Titus. Erected around 81 Common Era by Emperor Domitian to honor his deified brother, Titus, this isn't merely a monument, it is a masterpiece of political propaganda carved in gleaming Pentelic marble. Its single grand archway was a passage of triumph, a route reserved for conquering generals and their victorious legions returning from war. To walk through it today is to tread the same stones as Rome's greatest heroes, but the story it tells is one of devastating loss for another people. The true narrative of the arch is revealed in its breathtaking, deeply detailed relief panels. On one side, we see Roman soldiers carrying the sacred spoils of war from a conquered city. They hoist above their shoulders the massive golden menorah, the silver trumpets, and the table of the shewbread, all priceless treasures looted from the Second Temple in Jerusalem. The artist captured these objects with such precise detail that they have become primary historical references for what these sacred items actually looked like. On the opposite side, Titus himself stands proudly in his chariot, a quadriga, being crowned by victory while the goddess Roma leads the horses. The message is unequivocal. The emperor is divine, Rome is eternal, and all who oppose her will be vanquished. This arch commemorates a pivotal and traumatic event, the brutal sack of Jerusalem in 70 Common Era and the crushing of the Jewish revolt. The destruction of the Second Temple was a cataclysm that fundamentally altered the course of Jewish history, scattering its people across the globe and beginning a 2,000-year diaspora. For centuries, Jewish tradition even forbade walking under the arch that celebrated this profound sorrow. Yet, in a powerful twist of history, the same arch took on a new meaning after the founding of the modern state of Israel. Many Jewish paratroopers who helped reclaim the Western Wall in 1967 famously visited the arch, now seeing it not just as a symbol of their exile, but also of their survival and ultimate return. The Arch of Titus is a portal of complex and layered memory, a celebration of Roman victory that simultaneously bears silent, stone witness to the resilience of the very culture it sought to obliterate. But if the Arch of Titus tells a story of conquest through solemn marble, our next portal unveils a world of color, power, and divine spectacle. We now journey east to the heart of ancient Mesopotamia to stand before what might be the most breathtaking gateway the ancient world ever produced, the magnificent Ishtar Gate of Babylon. Constructed around 575 before the Common Era by the powerful King Nebuchadnezzar II, this was not merely an entrance, it was the grand opening act to the city's most sacred path, the processional way, used during the lavish New Year's festival. Imagine approaching a city and seeing this colossal structure rising from the plains, not of dull stone, but of a radiant, glazed lapis lazuli blue, a color so vibrant and expensive it was synonymous with the gods themselves. The gate was a staggering display of wealth and technological prowess, a monument designed to inspire awe and fear in equal measure, and it wasn't just the color that dazzled. The entire surface of the gate was adorned with rows of bas-relief animals, each brick meticulously molded and fired to create this stunning bestiary. Striding in magnificent alternation are bulls associated with the storm god Adad and a fearsome, dragon-like creature called the Mashasu. This incredible being is a composite symbol of power with the head and scales of a serpent, the front legs of a lion, and the hind legs of an eagle. This was the sacred animal of Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, but the gate itself was dedicated to the goddess of love and war, Ishtar, whose own symbol was the lion. So these creatures were far more than decoration. They were a divine assembly, a celestial guard standing watch over the city, ensuring the protection and favor of the gods for all who entered. Nebuchadnezzar left behind a detailed inscription, a proud declaration of his achievement that speaks across the millennia. He wrote, "I placed wild bulls and ferocious dragons in the gateways and thus adorned them with luxurious splendor so that people might gaze on them in wonder. This was the ultimate expression of royal power, a king literally reshaping the very fabric of his city to reflect its glory and his own piety. To walk through the Ishtar Gate in its prime was to participate in a carefully orchestrated ritual of power, to be surrounded by the divine, and to have your senses utterly overwhelmed by the message that Babylon was the center of the universe. The gate's incredible preservation offers another fascinating chapter to its story. The very technology that made it so brilliant, those glazed bricks, is what allowed it to be painstakingly excavated by German archaeologists in the early 20th century and reconstructed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. While the original foundations remain in Iraq, walking into the museum's hall is the closest one can get to experiencing the gate's original, overwhelming grandeur. This, of course, places the Ishtar Gate at the center of complex conversations about cultural heritage, colonialism, and the rights to antiquities. It stands today not only as a testament to Nebuchadnezzar's vision, but also as a permanent and somewhat controversial ambassador of ancient Mesopotamia, allowing millions of visitors each year to step directly into the dazzling, blue-hued heart of the Babylonian Empire. Leaving the vibrant, reconstructed blues of Babylon behind, we now venture high into the thin, breathless air of the Bolivian Andes to a windswept plain near the shores of Lake Titicaca. Here, amidst the ruins of a city that was ancient long before the Inca ever rose to power, stands our fourth portal, the enigmatic Gateway of the Sun. Carved from a single, colossal block of grey andesite stone weighing an estimated 10 tons, this archway is not part of a larger structure. It stands alone, a haunting and monolithic question mark against the vast South American sky. For the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished between 500 and 1000 Common Era, this was clearly an object of immense significance, but its true purpose has been shrouded in mystery for centuries, captivating archaeologists and igniting the imaginations of all who see it. The gateway's most striking feature is the intricate and deeply carved frieze that covers its entire top section. At the center stands a powerful, imposing figure, often identified as the staff god, a central deity in the Andean pantheon who appears in various forms throughout the region's ancient art. He holds a vertical staff in each hand, and from his radiating headdress stream 48 mesmerizing figures, 32 with human faces and 16 with condor heads. These figures are all running toward the central god, as if in a state of ecstatic worship or perhaps as a celestial procession marking the passage of time. The precision of this carving is astounding, especially considering the incredible hardness of andesite, a volcanic rock that would have required immense skill and even harder stone tools to shape with such detail. This level of craftsmanship points to the Tiwanaku's astonishing and still not fully understood engineering prowess. The entire site is a marvel of megalithic construction, featuring massive stones cut with such geometric precision that they fit together seamlessly without any mortar, a technique reminiscent of the later Inca but arguably even more advanced. How did they transport this 10-ton archway from a quarry nearly 10 kilometers away? How did they achieve such flawless, sharp angles and smooth surfaces with what we assume were simple stone and copper tools? The Gateway of the Sun stands as a silent testament to a technology that seems to defy the era, a puzzle that suggests the Tiwanaku possessed knowledge we are still working to rediscover. Many researchers believe the key to the Gateway's purpose is written in its celestial carvings. The most prominent theory suggests it functioned as a sophisticated calendar. The 48 figures surrounding the staff god could represent a count of days, months, or years within a complex cyclical system. Some scholars have proposed that the entire design maps out a Venusian cycle of 584 days or even a 3-year lunar solar cycle. Its orientation is also highly deliberate. During the winter solstice, the rising sun would have aligned perfectly with the central axis of the gateway, flooding the carved deity with light in a dramatic display of astronomical alignment. For an agricultural society living at an altitude of over 12,000 feet, tracking the seasons with precision was not just science, it was a matter of survival, and this archway may have been their most important tool. Yet, for the local Aymara people, whose ancestors have lived in the shadow of these ruins for generations, the gateway holds a deeper, more spiritual significance. Their oral traditions speak of it not as a calendar, but as a literal portal, a doorway used by gods and heroes to travel between worlds or between different states of consciousness. This perspective invites us to consider that the Tiwanaku might have viewed time, astronomy, and spirituality as inseparable concepts. The gateway could have been the focal point for rituals where priests, perhaps aided by natural plant-based substances, sought to commune with the divine figure at its center, using the astronomical alignments as a trigger for these transcendental experiences. The gateway of the sun, therefore, may be the ultimate hybrid, a precision scientific instrument that also served as a sacred threshold to the cosmos, a place where one could literally step into the rhythm of the universe. But to truly appreciate the ambition of Septimius Severus, you have to look beyond the arch itself to the city it glorified. Leptis Magna was transformed under his reign from a prosperous trading port into one of the most magnificent cities in the entire Roman Empire. The arch served as the grand centerpiece of a massive urban renewal project that included a magnificent new forum, a sprawling basilica, and a breathtaking colonnaded street that ran from the harbor right to the arch itself. This wasn't just construction, it was a statement. The emperor was leveraging the full might and artistic genius of Rome to elevate his humble birthplace to a status that could rival the ancient capitals of the Mediterranean world. Walking through his arch, you are entering a new, Severan version of Rome, one with its heart firmly planted in African soil. The arch's elaborate sculptural program is a visual chronicle of the emperor's power and piety. The four facades are covered in meticulously carved panels depicting scenes of military victory, religious sacrifice, and the joyous procession of the imperial family. Unlike the more static and formal sculptures found on many Roman monuments, the figures here seem to pulse with life and movement. You can see the strain of soldiers in combat, the solemn focus of priests during a ritual, and the dignified grace of the emperor and his sons, Caracalla and Geta, presented as the heirs to a glorious dynasty. Every detail, from the folds of their robes to the expressions on their faces, was designed to inspire awe and loyalty in the citizens of Leptis Magna, forever connecting their identity and prosperity to the fortune of their most famous son. For centuries, the Arch of Septimius Severus stood as a powerful symbol of this African-Roman synthesis, but its story did not end with the fall of the empire. Like the city it watched over, the arch was gradually reclaimed by the desert sands, buried and preserved in a state of remarkable suspended animation. This natural entombment protected its exquisite carvings from the weathering and vandalism that damaged so many other ancient structures, allowing modern archaeologists to uncover it centuries later in an exceptional state of preservation. Today, it stands not only as a monument to a Roman emperor, but also as a poignant reminder of the vast, interconnected history of North Africa, a region that was once a vibrant and indispensable part of the classical world, whose contributions to art, architecture, and history were literally set in stone for all to see. Yet the arch's story is one of resilience and repurposing. After Constantine's Edict of Milan in 313 Common Era legalized Christianity, the religious landscape of the empire shifted dramatically. Galerius's Rotunda, initially intended as his imperial mausoleum or a temple to pagan gods, was transformed into a Christian church. It was consecrated as the Church of St. George, and stunning mosaics depicting Christian martyrs and saints were added to its soaring dome, creating one of the most important early Christian sites in the world. This conversion created a fascinating historical layering, a triumphal arch celebrating a pagan emperor's military victory, leading directly to a palace which then connected to a structure that became a cornerstone of Christian worship. The entire complex became a physical timeline, charting the empire's turbulent transition from paganism to Christianity within the span of a single generation. Today, standing before the remaining piers of the arch, you witness this incredible convergence of history. You can trace the stonework following the narrative of soldiers and submission, then turn and look toward the rotunda, which still stands as a functioning church. The palace grounds are now a public square integrated into the modern city's fabric. This archway, therefore, is not an isolated relic but a living part of Thessaloniki's urban heart. It serves as a permanent reminder that history is not a series of clean endings and beginnings, but a continuous process of adaptation, where monuments built for one purpose can be gracefully, and sometimes surprisingly, adopted to serve another, whispering tales of both war and peace, persecution and faith from the same ancient stones. From the layered history of Thessaloniki, we journey south across the Mediterranean to the sun-scorched highlands of Algeria, where another arch stands as a perfect, almost textbook example of Roman ambition far from the capital. This is the majestic Timgad Arch, also known as the Arch of Trajan, marking the formal northern entrance to the meticulously planned Roman colony of Thamugadi. Erected around the middle of the 2nd century Common Era, this isn't just a monument, it's a gateway into one of the best preserved examples of Roman urban planning anywhere in the world, a snapshot of imperial ideology frozen in stone. Constructed primarily of a beautiful golden sandstone, the arch soars to a height of over 12 meters, its 3 openings creating a grand and practical entrance. The central archway, the largest of the 3, was reserved for wheeled traffic and processions, while the 2 smaller side arches accommodated pedestrian foot traffic. This design was both functional and deeply symbolic, representing the ordered, hierarchical nature of Roman society itself. Everything and everyone had their proper place. The entire structure is adorned with columns and pilasters featuring ornate Corinthian capitals, and its Attic story would have originally held a grand bronze inscription dedicating the arch and the city to the Emperor Trajan, the colony's founder. Though those metal letters were looted long ago, the message of imperial loyalty and civic pride remains etched into the very purpose of the structure. But to truly appreciate the Timgad Arch, you must understand what it was built to guard. The city of Timgad, or Thamugadi, was founded around 100 Common Era by Emperor Trajan as a colonia, a settlement for retired veterans of the 3rd Augustan Legion. It was laid out with mathematical precision in a perfect gridiron pattern, a classic example of Roman castrametation or military camp planning. The 2 main streets, the Cardo Maximus and the Decumanus Maximus, crossed at the city's center, and from this arch at the north end, you could look directly down the perfectly straight Decumanus and see the entire organized expanse of the city unfolding before you. The forum, the theater, the library, the public baths, and hundreds of private homes, all neatly arranged into insulae or city blocks. This arch was therefore far more than a decorative gateway. It was a powerful statement of Roman identity and control in a foreign land. For a retired Roman soldier who had spent decades campaigning, passing under this grand monument and into the orderly streets of Timgad was the ultimate reward. It was a transition from a life of military service to one of civilized leisure and governance. They were not just entering a city, they were entering a perfect little slice of Rome, transported to the North African frontier. The arch signaled that Roman law, Roman culture, and Roman order prevailed here, a bastion of civilization against the perceived chaos of the surrounding Berber territories. The incredible preservation of Timgad as a whole, often called the Pompeii of North Africa due to its burial by desert sand, allows us to understand the arch's role in the daily life of the city with unusual clarity. It wasn't an isolated triumphal monument like some others. It was an integrated part of the city's defensive walls and daily rhythm. Goods from the Mediterranean world would have flowed through it, officials would have passed under it to enter the city, and its imposing presence would have assured residents of their safety and superiority. Today, standing in its shadow, you can look through its openings and still see the ruts worn into the stone pavement by the countless carts that passed through, a tangible connection to the vibrant commercial and civic life that once pulsed through this now silent stone gateway. Our journey now takes us deeper into the rugged mountains of Algeria, to a site that perfectly encapsulates the complex, layered identity of the Roman Empire's farthest reaches. High in the hills, at an elevation of nearly 1,000 meters, sits the ancient city of Cuicul, known today as Jamila, meaning the beautiful one in Arabic. And here, presiding over the city's grand southern entrance, stands the Arch of Caracalla, a monument of stunning elegance that tells a story far more nuanced than simple imperial homage. Erected in 216 Common Era to honor the infamous Emperor Caracalla and his mother, Julia Domna, this arch is not the stark, militaristic structure one might expect. Instead, it is a graceful, triple-arched gateway that showcases a remarkable and sophisticated fusion of Roman imperial power and distinct local North African artistry. Built from a warm, honey-colored local sandstone, the arch immediately feels different from the stark white marble monuments of Rome itself. Its three archways are framed by beautifully fluted Corinthian columns, each standing on an elevated pedestal, giving the entire structure a sense of soaring lightness and grandeur. The central arch, larger and more ornate, was designed for wheeled traffic and important processions, while the two smaller side arches provided access for pedestrians, efficiently managing the flow of a bustling city. But the true magic of this arch lies in its decorative details, where the hand of local Berber craftsmen is vividly apparent alongside the standardized language of Roman imperial art. Look closely at the sculptural program, and you'll see a fascinating dialogue between two cultures. The spandrels, the spaces between the tops of the arches and the rectangular frame, are adorned with deeply carved, majestic figures of victory, holding laurel wreaths and palm fronds, classic Roman symbols of military triumph. Yet, the execution of these figures, the flow of their drapery, and the distinctive stylistic flourishes suggest they were carved by local artists schooled in their own regional traditions, not imported artisans from Italy. This blend continues in the frieze and the attic story, which would have originally held dedications and statues of the imperial family. The overall effect is one of a harmonious partnership, a visual declaration that Cuicul was both proudly Roman and authentically African, a place where the two identities were not in conflict but were woven together into a new and vibrant whole. This architectural fusion makes perfect sense when you consider the city's history and the emperor it honors. Cuicul was not a veterans' colony like Timgad. It was a prosperous market town that grew rich from the fertile lands around it, particularly from the cultivation of grain and olives. Its wealthy patrons, both Roman settlers and local Berber elites who had gained citizenship, competed to beautify their city with forums, temples, theaters, and grand bath complexes. The Arch of Caracalla was funded by a wealthy local citizen named Gaius Julius Quintianus Flavius Rogatianus, a name that itself tells a story of cultural integration, a likely Berber man who had adopted Roman customs and achieved a high status within the imperial system. By erecting this arch, he was performing his Roman civic duty while simultaneously celebrating his own local power and prestige. And then there is Caracalla himself, a complex and brutal emperor whose most lasting legacy was ironically an act of unprecedented inclusion. In 212 Common Era, he issued the Constitutio Antoniniana, an edict that granted Roman citizenship to every freeborn man in the empire. For the prosperous Berber citizens of Cuicul, this decree was a monumental affirmation of their place within the empire. Erecting an arch in Caracalla's honor just a few years later was less about praising a specific military victory and more about expressing profound gratitude for this new, official recognition of their status. They were no longer subjects, they were full citizens, and this beautiful arch was their way of announcing that fact to the world, weaving their emperor's image into the very fabric of their city's identity. Today, wandering through the breathtaking ruins of Jamila, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Arch of Caracalla stands as a poignant centerpiece. It frames views of the sprawling city below and the sweeping, dramatic landscapes beyond, a constant reminder of how this community thrived by embracing multiple influences. Unlike the solitary arch at Timgad, this gateway was deeply integrated into a dense urban landscape, connected to a grand staircase that led up to the Capitolium Temple and the heart of the city's religious life. It wasn't just a boundary marker, it was an active participant in the daily rhythm of Cuicul, a beautiful and functional piece of art that welcomed all into a unique cultural space where the Mediterranean world and the indigenous spirit of North Africa met as equals, creating something truly beautiful and enduring. Leaving the golden sands of North Africa behind, our journey now carries us across the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean to the eastern coast of Italy. Perched majestically on a rocky headland in the port city of Ancona stands our ninth gateway, a structure of pure, gleaming white marble that seems to grow directly from the cliffs themselves. This is the Arch of Trajan, and unlike the triumphal arches celebrating military conquest, this monument tells a different kind of Roman story, one of peace, prosperity, and the incredible engineering prowess that fueled an empire not just by the sword but by the sea. Erected in 115 Common Era, it was commissioned by the Roman Senate and people to honor the Emperor Trajan, not for a victory in battle, but for a far more enduring gift, the magnificent harbor that stretches out beneath it. To understand the profound significance of this arch, you must first appreciate the geography it commands. Ancona sits on a natural promontory, its name deriving from the Greek word ankon, meaning elbow, for the way the coastline bends here to form a natural, sheltered bay. While it had been a port since Greek times, it was Trajan who recognized its strategic potential and transformed it into one of the most important harbors on the entire Adriatic Sea. He funded a massive expansion, building new quays, breakwaters, and warehouses, turning it into a crucial maritime hub that connected Rome directly to the vital eastern provinces of Dalmatia, Greece, and beyond. The arch was positioned at the very end of the newly constructed mole, the long stone pier that defined the harbor's entrance. For every ship sailing into this safe haven, whether a mighty Roman grain freighter or a sleek Greek merchant vessel, their first sight of the city was this brilliant white arch standing sentinel against the blue sky, a literal gateway to the riches of the empire. The arch itself is a masterpiece of elegant simplicity and refined taste, crafted from the finest Greek marble and brought here by the very ships that used the harbor. It stands over 18 meters tall on a high base of steps. Its design is a perfect, harmonious Roman arch with a single, large opening, framed by 4 elegant, fluted Corinthian columns on tall pedestals that project from the faces. The choice of Corinthian columns with their intricate acanthus leaf capitals was a deliberate symbol of wealth, culture, and civic achievement rather than militaristic power. But the true voice of the arch is found in its inscriptions. A large bronze letter inscription across the attic, now lost but recorded by historians, declared it was dedicated to the Emperor Caesar Nerva Trajan, highlighting his titles of Augustus and Germanicus. More personally, a smaller inscription on the base credits the project's architect, a Greek master builder named Apollodorus of Damascus, who was also responsible for Trajan's forum and market in Rome itself. This acknowledgement of the engineer was exceptionally rare, signaling that this arch was above all a celebration of architectural genius. This was not a triumphal arch in the traditional sense, it was an honorary arch, a category all its own. There are no sculpted reliefs depicting battles or captured enemies. Instead, the arch's power lies in its majestic presence and its undeniable function as a utilitarian lighthouse and a symbolic welcome sign. It is widely believed that statues once adorned its top, perhaps of Trajan and his wife Plotina, and that a bronze quadriga, a four-horse chariot, crowned the summit, its metal gleaming to be seen far out to sea. For the sailors of the ancient world navigating by landmarks along the coast, the sight of this gleaming white monument would have been a welcome reassurance, a beacon of civilization and safe passage. It represented the end of a long and dangerous journey and the beginning of opportunity within the secure and organized network of Roman trade. The Arch of Trajan stands today in a remarkable state of preservation, a testament to the quality of its construction and the enduring respect it commanded through the centuries. It has watched over the harbor for nearly 1900 years, silently witnessing the rise and fall of empires from the Byzantines to the Venetians. It was even incorporated into the city's medieval fortifications, with a sturdy gate added to its opening, a practice that ultimately helped protect it from being quarried for its precious marble. Standing before it now, you can still see the grooves worn into the marble pavement by cartwheels and the footsteps of countless merchants, sailors, and citizens who passed beneath its benevolent gaze. It remains a powerful symbol of Ancona itself, a city built on connection and commerce, and a timeless monument to the vision of an emperor who understood that the true strength of an empire is built not just on conquest, but on the foundations of a safe harbor. But our journey through Roman arches now takes a surprising turn, leading us away from the clear narratives of triumph and harbor engineering into the bustling, messy heart of ancient commerce. In the very center of Rome, nestled in the Forum Boarium, the ancient cattle market, stands a structure that defies easy explanation, the Arch of Janus. This is not a soaring, single-span archway, but a massive, square monument, the only surviving quadriforms arch in Rome, meaning it has four identical facades and four great archways open to the cardinal directions. Constructed in the early 4th century Common Era from spolia reused bricks and marble fragments from older buildings, its purpose remains one of the city's most intriguing architectural puzzles, wrapped in a millennia-old case of mistaken identity. The arch's imposing presence is undeniable. It stands nearly 16 meters high, a hollow, towering block of history. Its sheer bulk suggests a critical function. The most widely accepted theory is that it served as a boundary marker, perhaps delineating the sacred space of the Forum Boarium itself. But a more fascinating possibility is that it functioned as a formalized crossroads shelter, a grand covered meeting point for merchants and traders. Under its vast, vaulted ceiling, protected from sun and rain, deals could be struck, contracts sealed, and goods inspected. Each of its four archways would have funneled traffic from a different direction, making it the dynamic, chaotic hub of one of Rome's most important commercial districts. It was less a monument to be looked at and more a space to be experienced, a building that thrived on the constant movement of people and commerce flowing through its open sides. And this is where the confusion begins, a mix-up that has persisted for centuries. The arch's modern name, Arch of Janus, comes from its four-faced design, which Renaissance antiquarians mistakenly linked to the two-faced Roman god of the same name. Janus, the god of beginnings, endings, transitions, and doorways, is indeed depicted with two faces, looking simultaneously to the past and the future. However, a four-faced structure is not his traditional symbol. The name, while inaccurate, stuck, creating a powerful and poetic, though historically incorrect association. The arch likely had no dedicated religious connection to Janus. Its true name and the dedication that would have been inscribed on its missing attic story are lost to time. It stands as an architectural ghost, its original identity erased and replaced by a later, more romantic guess. Yet, even as a misnomer, the name invites a deeper reflection. The arch's position in the Forum Boarium, a place of constant trade and exchange, actually aligns beautifully with Janus's domain. As the god of passages and thresholds, what better deity to symbolically preside over a structure that was quite literally a gateway for economic activity? Every merchant passing through was in a state of transition, moving from one deal to the next, from risk to reward. While the arch wasn't built for him, it's easy to imagine the Romans of the time feeling his presence there anyway, in the same way we might feel a sense of chance in a financial district today. The arch thus operates on two levels: its probable historical reality as a pragmatic commercial shelter, and its enduring poetic identity as a monument to transition and possibility, a stone metaphor for the endless cycles of business and life that pulsed through the heart of ancient Rome. From the bustling commercial crossroads of Rome's Arch of Titus, we travel north, following the path of one of the empire's most vital roads to where it finally meets the sea. In the modern coastal city of Rimini, Italy, a lone, majestic white archway stands as a silent sentinel to a moment of profound change in world history. This is the Arch of Augustus, and it holds the distinguished title of the oldest surviving Roman triumphal arch, a timeless monument that marks not just a geographic endpoint, but the glorious beginning of a new era. Erected in 27 before the Common Era, this arch was far more than decoration. It was a powerful, calculated political statement carved in gleaming Istrian stone, announcing the dawn of the Pax Romana and the unchallenged supremacy of Rome's first true emperor. To grasp the sheer significance of this arch, you have to understand the road it crowned. For nearly 200 years before the arch was built, the Via Flaminia stretched over 200 miles from the gates of Rome, crossing the treacherous Apennine Mountains and forging through the heart of Italy. This wasn't just any road, it was a primary artery of the Roman Republic, built by the censor Gaius Flaminius in 220 before the Common Era to facilitate the movement of troops, speed the delivery of information, and connect the capital to its newly acquired territories in the fertile Po Valley. The Arch of Augustus was constructed as the magnificent northern terminus of this engineering marvel. For a traveler who had endured the long, dusty journey from Rome, passing under this arch meant they had truly arrived at the edge of the civilized world, stepping into the bustling port city of Ariminum, a crucial gateway to the lands beyond the Adriatic Sea. The arch's design is a masterpiece of understated power and symbolic clarity, a blueprint that would influence centuries of Roman monument building to come. It stands over 17 meters tall, with a single grand opening that spans nearly 9 meters, wide enough to accommodate the largest wagons and most triumphant processions. It is built from massive, perfectly fitted blocks of local Istrian stone, which has aged to a soft, warm white. The structure is strikingly simple and muscular, lacking the later elaborate relief sculptures of conquest seen on arches like Titus's. Instead, its message is conveyed through its formidable presence and a series of deeply symbolic architectural details. 4 elegant Corinthian pilasters' flattened columns frame the opening on each side, supporting a heavy, pronounced entablature. This clean, harmonious blend of Greek architectural refinement with Roman structural ambition created a new visual language for power, one that was civilized, ordered, and permanent. The true voice of the arch, however, is found in its inscriptions and its divine audience. The inscription on the Attic story, though now faded, was recorded by ancient historians. It declared that the Roman Senate and people dedicated this monument to Emperor Caesar Augustus, son of the divine Julius, in recognition of his restoration of the Via Flaminia and all of Italy's roads. This was a masterstroke of political propaganda. By commemorating the repair of a road, Augustus was presenting himself not as a conqueror, but as a benefactor, a bringer of peace, prosperity, and connectivity after decades of brutal civil war. The arch's decoration reinforces this message of a new, golden age. The inner faces of the archway feature carved clypi or ceremonial shields, and the spandrels once held magnificent sculptures of 4 Roman deities, Jupiter and Apollo on one side, Neptune and the goddess Roma on the other. This wasn't just a celebration of a man, it was a dedication to the very idea of Rome, its gods, and its destined mastery over both land and sea, all under the watchful, divine authority of Augustus himself. Perhaps the most striking feature and a clear sign of its early date is what the arch doesn't have: a top-heavy attic story or a statue group on top. Many scholars believe it was originally crowned by a breathtaking bronze statue of Augustus himself, driving a quadriga, a four-horse chariot. This dazzling figure, gleaming in the sunlight, would have been visible for miles to anyone approaching on the Via Flaminia, a stunning apparition of the new emperor's power. The arch's lasting influence is immense. Its basic form, a single opening framed by engaged columns and a heavy entablature, became the essential model for countless triumphal arches that followed across the empire from the shores of France to the deserts of North Africa. It established the archetype, proving that architecture itself could be one of the most persuasive tools of statecraft. Standing before the Arch of Augustus today, you are in the presence of a pivotal first. This is the prototype, the origin point for an entire architectural genre that would come to define Roman imperial ambition for centuries. It has watched over the changing of the world for over 2,000 years, surviving wars, earthquakes, and the rise and fall of empires. The bustling Roman port of Ariminum is now the lively Italian resort town of Rimini, and the mighty Flaminian Way is now a modern street, but the arch remains, still functioning as a gateway for all who pass through it. It is a permanent stone testament to the moment a fractured republic ended and a vast world-shaping empire began, all under the gaze of the man who made it happen. Yet if the Arch of Augustus represents a confident beginning, our next portal stands as a magnificent, perplexing endpoint. In the shadow of the Colosseum, at the very heart of ancient Rome, rises the colossal Arch of Constantine, the largest, last, and most archaeologically complex triumphal arch ever built in the city. Dedicated in 315 Common Era to celebrate Emperor Constantine's decisive victory over his rival Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, this monument is far more than a celebration of a single military triumph. It is a breathtaking architectural collage, a stunning patchwork of recycled art that tells a layered and contradictory story of an empire in profound transition, using the glory of its past to legitimize a shaky and revolutionary present. Approaching the arch is an overwhelming experience. It is a massive triple-bayed structure, soaring 21 meters high and spanning over 25 meters wide, dwarfing nearly every other structure in the Forum Valley. But its true mystery becomes apparent upon closer inspection. The entire arch is decorated with a bewildering array of sculptural styles, from the crisp, classical idealism of the 2nd century to the stiffer, more symbolic figures of the 4th. This is because a staggering amount of its decoration was not carved for Constantine at all. Instead, it was systematically looted, or in the formal term, taken as spolia, from monuments dedicated to earlier, good emperors of the 2nd century, Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius. Constantine's sculptors created new panels for the arch to tell the specific story of his victory and subsequent generosity, but they framed this new narrative with the repurposed glory of Rome's golden age. This radical reuse raises a fascinating historical question. Was this an act of pragmatic recycling or a deliberate political strategy? The traditional view held that Rome's artistic and economic decline in the 3rd century was so severe that there were no sculptors left with the skill to create such high-quality work, forcing Constantine to plunder the past. A more compelling modern interpretation, however, sees this as a masterstroke of propaganda. By literally attaching his image and story to the greatest emperors in Roman history, Constantine was creating a powerful visual argument for his own legitimacy. He wasn't just winning a civil war, he was positioning himself as the rightful heir to Trajan's military prowess, Hadrian's wisdom, and Marcus Aurelius's philosophical virtue. He was stitching his new regime into the very fabric of Rome's most celebrated era, asking his citizens to see him not as a revolutionary but as a restorer. The arch's intricate layout tells two stories simultaneously. The new Constantinian panels, which run in a band around the base of the structure, depict scenes from the Milvian Bridge campaign and its aftermath. We see the siege of Verona, the chaotic battle at the Milvian Bridge itself, and perhaps most importantly, Constantine addressing the people of Rome from the rostra in the Forum and distributing money to them. These scenes are carved in a style that is less naturalistic and more hierarchical than the older spolia. Figures are blocky with large, expressive eyes, and scale is used to denote importance rather than realism. Constantine is always the largest figure. Their purpose is clear: to document the events of the war and, crucially, to portray the new emperor not as a ruthless conqueror, but as a generous and lawful leader welcomed by the Senate and people. Contrasting sharply with these are the magnificent roundels and rectangular panels taken from earlier monuments. 8 stunning roundels, or tondi, were taken from a lost monument to Hadrian. They depict scenes of hunting and sacrifice, with Hadrian's head meticulously recarved to resemble Constantine. 8 large rectangular panels lining the attic are from a grand frieze celebrating Marcus Aurelius's campaigns against Germanic tribes. Most impressive are the 4 panels on each end of the attic, along with the figures of captured Dacians atop the columns, all plundered from a triumphal monument to Trajan. The stylistic difference is jarring. The older sculptures are fluid, dynamic, and deeply naturalistic, full of emotion and movement that the newer Constantinian reliefs lack. This creates a fascinating dialogue across centuries, where the idealized past literally supports the narrative of the pragmatic present. And then there is the matter of the inscription, the largest such dedication ever mounted on an arch, which proclaims Constantine's victory was achieved by the instigation of the divinity. This famously ambiguous phrase has fueled debate for centuries. Does it refer to the Christian God, whom Constantine believed granted him a vision before the battle, promising victory under the sign of the cross? Or does it refer to the unconquered sun god, Sol Invictus, a deity widely worshipped in the army and a favorite of Constantine's for much of his life? The arch itself provides no clear answer. There are no overt Christian symbols on it, yet the language echoes the emperor's own shifting religious sentiments. The arch stands at a crossroads of faith, reflecting a moment when the empire was poised between its ancient pagan traditions and the rising tide of Christianity that Constantine would soon embrace and legalize. Ultimately, the Arch of Constantine is a monument of breathtaking contradictions. It is both new and old, innovative and traditional, a celebration of a specific battle and a sweeping claim of imperial continuity. It uses the artistic language of Rome's past greatness to legitimize an emperor who would ultimately move the capital to a new city, Constantinople, and set the stage for the Christianization of the empire. It is the last great pagan monument of Rome, yet it was built for the first Christian emperor. To walk beneath its 3 grand archways is to stand in a gateway between worlds, to witness the final, magnificent echo of the classical world and the first tentative hint of the medieval age soon to come, all frozen in a single, brilliant and perplexing stone puzzle. But from the grand political stage of Rome, our journey now turns eastward to the intellectual and spiritual heart of the ancient world. In the shadow of the Acropolis in Athens, a different kind of archway stands, not celebrating a military victory, but marking a profound cultural and philosophical transition. This is the Arch of Hadrian, an elegant and enigmatic structure of Pentelic marble that has sparked debate and curiosity for nearly 2,000 years. Unlike the forceful declarations of Roman power we've seen, this gateway is a more subtle and complex monument, a graceful symbol of the delicate relationship between a conquering empire and the revered cradle of its own culture. Erected around 131 Common Era, The arch was most likely built by the grateful citizens of Athens to honor the Roman Emperor Hadrian for his immense generosity to their city. Hadrian was a unique figure, a Philhellene or lover of all things Greek, who spent more time in Athens than any other emperor before him. Under his patronage, the city experienced a magnificent renaissance. He funded the completion of the colossal temple of Olympian Zeus, a project begun over 600 years earlier, built a new library, an aqueduct, and an entire new quarter of the city. The arch stands almost precisely on the line that divided the ancient classical city of Theseus from this new Roman district, a physical marker of Hadrian's expansive urban planning. The arch itself is strikingly simple and beautiful, lacking the elaborate sculptural reliefs of its Roman counterparts. It stands 18 meters high with a single, wide opening flanked by Corinthian columns on tall pedestals. Its design is a harmonious blend of Roman and Greek architectural traditions. The form is Roman, but the refinement and proportion are distinctly Athenian. The true intrigue of the arch, however, is carved into the stone itself in the form of two famous and seemingly contradictory inscriptions. On the northwest side, facing the old city and the Acropolis, the frieze reads, "This is Athens, the ancient city of Theseus." On the southeast side, facing the new Roman quarter and the temple of Olympian Zeus, it declares, "This is the city of Hadrian and not of Theseus." For generations, these inscriptions were interpreted as a stark dividing line, a declaration that Hadrian's new city was somehow separate and superior to the old. A more nuanced modern interpretation, however, suggests these were not statements of rivalry, but of layered identity and deep respect. The first inscription acknowledges and venerates the legendary, heroic past of Athens. The second is likely a grateful dedication from the Athenian people, naming Hadrian as their new founder and benefactor, just as Theseus was the mythological founder of the original city. It wasn't an erasure of history, but an addition to it, framing Hadrian as a second Theseus for a new era. The arch served as a ceremonial gateway. To pass through it from the old city to the new was to walk from the world of myth and classical glory into the vibrant, modern reality of a city revitalized by imperial favor, proudly carrying its ancient heritage into a prosperous new age. Leaving the grand imperial statements of Rome and Athens behind, our path now leads us to a more personal and intimate story of family pride, carved in stone on the very edge of the empire. In the vibrant Croatian port city of Pula, a magnificent archway stands not as a monument to an emperor's glory, but to the ambition and love of a single powerful family. This is the Arch of the Sergii, a stunningly beautiful and exquisitely detailed gateway that has been a landmark in this city for over 2,000 years. Constructed around the year 27 before the Common Era, it was commissioned by a woman named Salvia Postuma Sergii as a lasting tribute to three male relatives who had served with distinction in the pivotal final years of the Roman Republic. This arch is a masterpiece of what scholars call the Hellenistic Baroque style, a testament to the complex cultural currents flowing through the Roman world at the time. While the basic form is a Roman triumphal arch, its spirit and decoration are overwhelmingly Greek. It was originally part of the city's Porta Aurea, or Golden Gate, one of the 10 entrances in Pula's ancient walls, and it served as a ceremonial entry point from the city to the citadel. Unlike the freestanding arches we've seen in Rome, this structure was fully integrated into the fortifications, a functional part of the city's defenses that was also a breathtaking piece of public art dedicated to private citizens. The three men honored here were all members of the distinguished Sergia family. Lucius Sergius Lepidus was a tribune in the 29th Legion that fought for Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, in the civil wars following Julius Caesar's assassination. His father and brother are also named on the arch, highlighting a dynasty of local influence and military service. By building this arch, Salvia Postuma Sergii was doing more than just honoring her family. she was publicly cementing their status in the new political order. The civil wars were over, Octavian was now Augustus, and demonstrating loyalty to the winning side was crucial for maintaining power and prestige in a provincial city. This arch was a powerful declaration that the Sergii were not only important locally, but were also key players and supporters of the new emperor himself. What truly sets this arch apart and makes it a jewel of ancient art is its incredible sculptural decoration. Every surface is alive with movement and symbolism. The entire structure is framed by 3 Corinthian columns on each side, their slender, fluted shafts ending in intricately carved capitals bursting with acanthus leaves. The frieze running along the top is a dynamic scene of putti or baby cherubs driving ox carts and garlands, symbols of celebration and abundance. But the most captivating details are on the inner faces of the piers that support the arch. Here you find exquisite reliefs of winged victories gracefully holding up wreaths and palms, their drapery flowing as if caught in a gentle breeze. These figures are not the stern, formal victories of later Roman art. They are fluid, almost ethereal, bursting with a vitality and elegance that is purely Greek in inspiration. The arch's most famous and poignant feature is the dedicatory inscription, which runs along the entablature in bold, clear Roman letters. It reads, Salvia post Sergi de Svopeknia, which translates to Salvia postuma Sergi at her own expense. This simple phrase is a powerful reminder of the significant role wealthy women could play in the public life of the Roman world. While the monument celebrates the military and political achievements of her male relatives, it is her voice, her generosity, and her agency that made it possible. She ensured that her family's name would be remembered for millennia, not through her husband's or son's deeds, but through her own decisive action and financial commitment. For centuries, the Arch of the Sergii has been more than just a ruin. It has been a living part of Pulla's cityscape. It famously served as an inspiration to the Renaissance artist Michelangelo, and later it captured the imagination of the English poet Lord Byron. Its enduring appeal lies in its human scale and its heartfelt story. It isn't about the impersonal might of an empire, but about a family's love, pride, and desire for remembrance. To stand before it is to feel a direct connection to the people of the ancient world, to understand their personal ambitions, their artistic tastes, and their deep need to carve their story into the stone of history, ensuring that their names would echo long after they were gone. From the personal tribute of the Sergii family in Pulla, we journey west into the heart of what was once ancient Gaul, to a structure that represents the sheer, overwhelming might of the Roman war machine. In the fertile Rhône Valley of southern France, in the town of Orange, stands one of the most imposing and best-preserved triumphal arches from the ancient world, the magnificent Arch of Tiberius. This is not a mere gateway, it is a massive, densely decorated stone chronicle of conquest, a permanent declaration of Roman dominance carved into the landscape of a conquered people. Constructed between the years 20 and 27 Common Era, this arch commemorates the veterans of the Second Legion who had secured this vital territory for Rome decades earlier, solidifying a victory that transformed this region into one of the empire's most prosperous provinces. What immediately strikes you about this arch is its sheer scale and incredible state of preservation. Soaring over 19 meters high and stretching nearly 20 meters across, it dominates its surroundings with a powerful, muscular presence. It features 3 archways, a large central opening for chariots and triumphant processions, flanked by 2 smaller arches for pedestrian traffic, a design that would become a blueprint for later Roman monuments. But unlike many arches that have been stripped of their narrative decoration over the centuries, the Arch of Tiberius is absolutely covered in a breathtaking array of sculpted panels and friezes. Every available surface tells a story, primarily celebrating the hard-won Roman victory in the Gallic Wars and the subsequent pacification of the region, a campaign that had been completed some 80 years before the arch was even built. The arch's detailed carvings are an open history book in stone. The most prominent scenes depict naval and military spoils from the campaigns against the Gauls and various Germanic tribes. You can see piles of captured Celtic shields, distinctively long Gallic swords, curved trumpets called carnixes, and even the prows of enemy ships. These are not generic symbols of victory. They are specific inventories of war, a deliberate catalogue of the might and wealth that Rome had seized from its enemies. Interspersed with these scenes of plunder are depictions of combat itself, Roman soldiers grappling with bearded Germanic warriors in chaotic, energetic battles. The message is unequivocal. Rome's strength and prosperity were built upon the subjugation of its foes, and this arch served as a permanent reminder to the local Gallic population of who now held power. Yet the arch's dedication is where its story becomes particularly fascinating. Despite its detailed celebration of the Gallic Wars, which were famously waged by Julius Caesar a century prior, the arch was officially dedicated to the Emperor Tiberius. The main inscription, though now faded, honored Tiberius, his son Drusus, and his nephew Germanicus. This was less about historical accuracy and more about shrewd political messaging. By the time of its construction, the region, known as Gallia Narbonensis, had been thoroughly Romanized. Its inhabitants were full citizens, and many veterans of the very legions that had fought there had settled on the fertile land granted to them. The arch was a powerful piece of propaganda, linking the current, peaceful, and prosperous rule of Tiberius directly to the legendary military triumphs of the past. It reassured the local population that their security and status were founded on these ancient victories, while simultaneously demonstrating to Rome that this province remained fiercely loyal to the imperial family. The arch's incredible preservation is due in part to its later history. Like many Roman structures, it was incorporated into the town's medieval defenses, with a massive defensive wall built directly onto its north face. This fortification, while obscuring one side, ultimately protected the arch from being quarried for its stone. It was carefully liberated from these later additions in the 19th century, revealing the astonishingly crisp detail of its carvings to the modern world. Today, it stands not in isolation but as a key part of a breathtaking ancient ensemble, along with the incredibly preserved Roman Theatre of Orange, which sits just a short walk away. The Arch of Tiberius forms part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This pairing is profoundly meaningful. The arch represents the military power that conquered the land, while the theatre represents the sophisticated culture that was built upon that foundation. Together, they tell the complete story of Rome's civilizing mission, conquest followed by culture, force followed by forum. To stand before this arch is to stand at the very crossroads of that history, feeling the weight of an empire that shaped a continent. But if the Arch of Tiberius in France speaks of consolidating power in a long pacified province, our next gateway transports us to a far more volatile frontier of the Roman Empire. In the heart of modern-day Tripoli, Libya, stands a remarkable survivor, the Arch of Marcus Aurelius. This is the only Roman triumphal arch to have endured the centuries in Libya, a solitary marble sentinel from the 2nd century that has witnessed the dramatic transformation of the ancient city of Ea into the modern capital we know today. Erected around 165 Common Era, this arch is not merely a monument. It is a direct and poignant link to the reign of the philosopher-emperor, celebrating his hard-fought victories over the powerful Parthian Empire and the subsequent presentation of his adopted son and heir Commodus to the Roman world. The arch's very survival is a story in itself. For centuries, it was partially buried and incorporated into other structures, including a prison and later a mosque, which ironically helped preserve its core from complete destruction. It was meticulously excavated and restored in the 1930s, revealing its full form for the first time in generations. What emerged was a beautifully proportioned four-sided structure, a tetrapylon or quadriphran's arch, similar to the Arch of Janus in Rome but on a more intimate scale. Constructed from fine white Proconnesian marble shipped from quarries near Constantinople, its 4 facades are identically decorated, each with a single, large opening flanked by 4 elegant Corinthian columns on tall pedestals. This design meant the arch could be approached and appreciated from any direction, standing as a free-standing centerpiece in the heart of the ancient city's forum. The true historical treasure of this arch, however, lies in its intricate sculptural panels. Unlike many arches where the decorative carving has been worn away or looted, the Arch of Marcus Aurelius retains a stunning level of detail that allows us to read its story clearly. The most significant scenes are found on the 2 large panels inside the central bay, facing each other across the passageway. One panel depicts a powerful and classic Roman scene of adlocutio, or imperial address. Here, Marcus Aurelius, easily identifiable by his distinctive beard, stands on a raised platform, arm outstretched as he addresses a group of soldiers. His pose is one of calm authority, reinforcing his role as the commander-in-chief and the source of strategic wisdom for the legions. The panel directly opposite presents the dramatic culmination of that military command, a scene of submission and victory. It shows the emperor performing a sacerdatio, a sacred sacrifice of thanksgiving, on a portable altar. He is accompanied by his wife, Faustina the Younger, and their son, Commodus, who is shown as a young boy. This is a moment of profound political as well as military significance. The inclusion of Commodus, who would later become one of Rome's most infamous emperors, is a clear act of dynastic promotion, presenting him to the empire as the guaranteed successor and the future of the Antonine dynasty. But the most telling figures in this scene are the 2 captive Parthian soldiers, their hands bound behind their backs, sitting dejectedly at the base of the composition. Their presence transforms the panel from a simple religious ceremony into a stark declaration of total Roman victory and the humiliating defeat of one of Rome's most formidable Eastern rivals. These detailed carvings celebrate Marcus Aurelius's successful campaigns against the Parthian Empire, which had erupted in the early 160s Common Era. The Parthians had invaded Rome's client kingdoms in Armenia and Syria, inflicting a humiliating defeat on a Roman army and even sacking the great city of Antioch. In response, Marcus Aurelius dispatched his co-emperor and adopted brother, Lucius Verus, to the east. While Lucius Verus often gets the credit for managing the war, the ultimate triumph and the title, Parthicus Maximus, were shared by both emperors. The victories achieved by their talented generals pushed deep into Mesopotamia and resulted in the sack of the Parthian capital cities of Ctesiphon and Seleucia. The Arch in Ear, a city that greatly benefited from the lucrative trade routes secured by this peace, was a powerful gesture of loyalty from a prosperous provincial community to the emperors who had ensured their continued safety and wealth. Today, the arch stands in what is now known as Martyrs Square, a quiet island of antiquity amidst the bustling modern city. Its preservation is a testament to its enduring symbolic power, even as the world around it has been utterly transformed. It has survived earthquakes, shifts in political power, and the passage of nearly 1900 years. To stand beneath its weathered marble curves is to stand at a crossroads of history, connecting the philosophical reign of Marcus Aurelius, the bustling commercial life of Roman Ear, and the vibrant, complex present of Tripoli. It is a stone page from a history book, forever open to a chapter that speaks of imperial triumph, familial legacy, and the far-reaching arm of an empire that once stretched across the Mediterranean world. Leaving behind the grand imperial narratives of Tripoli and Orange, our path now leads us to a quieter, more contemplative corner of the Roman world. Amidst the rolling hills and olive groves of Spain's Castillon province, a solitary sentinel stands against the elements. This is the Arch of Cabanes, a stark and beautiful reminder of Rome's far-reaching presence, not in a bustling city forum, but in the open, rural landscape of ancient Iberia. Unlike the sculpted, triumphal arches celebrating emperors, This structure speaks a simpler, more mysterious language, its purpose etched not in elaborate carvings but in its very isolation and enduring form. Constructed in the 2nd century Common Era, the arch is a masterpiece of understated Roman engineering. It is a single, freestanding archway, built from large, precisely cut limestone blocks without the use of mortar, relying solely on the perfect balance and weight of the stone to maintain its form. It soars to a height of nearly 6 meters, its single vault creating a clean, powerful silhouette against the Spanish sky. Its design is starkly functional, lacking any of the decorative columns, inscriptions, or relief sculptures that adorn the arches of Rome. This simplicity is its most defining characteristic, forcing us to look beyond ornamentation to understand its original role in the ancient world. The key to unlocking the arch's story lies at its feet, or more precisely, beneath them. The Arch of Cabanes was not built in a random location. It stands precisely on the path of one of the most important roads in the Roman Empire, the Via Augusta. This was the longest Roman road in all of Hispania, stretching over 1,500 kilometers from the Pyrenees Mountains in the north all the way down to the port of Gades, modern-day Cadiz, in the south. It was the primary artery connecting the Iberian Peninsula to the rest of the empire, facilitating the movement of troops, the flow of trade goods like olive oil and wine, and the spread of Roman culture and law. The arch did not span the road itself but stood immediately beside it, a permanent landmark for every traveler on that long and dusty journey. But what was it for? Without a dedicatory inscription, archaeologists have debated its function for generations. The most prevalent theory is that it served as a monumental territorial marker, denoting the boundary of a large rural estate or latifundia, or perhaps the limits of a specific district's jurisdiction. In a world without modern signage, such a permanent, imposing stone structure would have been an unmistakable way to declare, from this point onward, you are entering these lands. It was a statement of ownership and control carved directly into the geography of the province. Another compelling theory suggests it was a memorial arch, or arcus memorialis, perhaps erected by a wealthy local family to honor a deceased loved one and to showcase their prestige and Roman identity to everyone passing on the Via Augusta. Such funerary monuments were not uncommon along Roman roads, serving as a constant reminder of a family's status to the flow of traffic. The arch's isolated, hilltop position would have made it highly visible from a distance, ensuring that its message, whether of territorial claim or personal remembrance, was seen by as many people as possible. The enduring power of the Arch of Cabanes lies in its evocative solitude. There is no ancient city surrounding it, no forum or theater nearby. It stands alone, a single, elegant arc of stone connecting earth and sky, with only the wind and the whispers of the past for company. This isolation allows us to appreciate the sheer scale of the Roman Empire in a way that a monument in a crowded urban center cannot. It reminds us that Rome's influence was not confined to grand cities alone. It was woven into the very fabric of the countryside, marked by these enduring structures that organized the land and guided the people who moved through it. To stand before it today is to share a moment of quiet connection with an anonymous Roman traveler, pausing on their long journey along the Via Augusta, glancing up at this silent stone gateway and knowing exactly where they were in the world. While the grand arches of emperors dominate our imagination, some of the most fascinating portals are those that served the city itself, humbly performing a vital function for centuries. Tucked away on Rome's Caelian Hill, away from the main tourist thoroughfares, stands such a structure, the unassuming yet enduring Arch of Dolabella. Constructed in the year 10 of the Common Era by the consuls Publius Cornelius Dolabella and Gaius Junius Silanus, this gateway is a stark contrast to the ornate triumphal arches we've explored. It wasn't built to celebrate a military victory or to glorify an emperor. It was a purely practical piece of urban infrastructure commissioned by two public officials to support the city's growing needs. Its simple, robust form, a single archway made of massive travertine blocks, speaks to a different kind of Roman ambition. Not conquest, but the quiet, brilliant engineering that made daily life in a massive metropolis possible. The true purpose of this modest arch reveals the incredible sophistication of Roman civil engineering. The Arch of Dolabella was not merely a passage over a road, it was a crucial support structure for the Aqua Claudia and the Anio Novus, two of Rome's most important aqueducts. These marvels of engineering brought fresh water from sources dozens of miles away to supply the city's baths, fountains, and private homes. The arch acted as a sturdy bridge carrying the specus, or water channel, of these aqueducts across the valley between the Caelian and Palatine hills. For centuries, a constant stream of life-giving water flowed silently overhead, while citizens and carts passed through the arch below, largely unaware of the vital artery running above them. This dual function makes it a powerful symbol of the layered nature of Roman construction, where beauty and utility were often seamlessly combined, even in the most workmanlike of structures. Its survival into the modern era is a story of continuous adaptation. When the aqueducts eventually fell into disrepair after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the arch's sturdy construction ensured it wasn't quarried for its valuable stone. Instead, it found new life in the medieval period. By the 13th century, it was incorporated into the defensive walls of the powerful Orsini family, becoming a fortified gate for their estate on the Caelian hill. Later, in the 17th century, it was repurposed once again to support a new form of infrastructure, the Aqua Fellis Aqueduct commissioned by Pope Sixtus V. This incredible longevity, serving first ancient Roman aqueducts, then medieval fortifications, and finally a Renaissance water system, makes the Arch of Dolabella a unique physical timeline of Roman history, its stonework bearing silent witness to the city's endless cycles of decay and renewal. North of Rome, where the ancient Via Flaminia cuts through the quiet countryside, stands a structure that perfectly embodies the strange and transformative moment when the ancient world began its turn toward a new faith. This is the Arch of Malborghetto, a unique and solitary tetrapillar arch that tells a story far more personal and perhaps even more profound than the colossal monuments of the capital. Unlike the grand triumphal arches in the city, this four-sided gateway wasn't built for public celebration. Its origins are shrouded in the urgency of military campaign, and its legacy is one of remarkable spiritual adaptation, forever linking it to one of the most pivotal visions in human history. Constructed in the early 4th century, the arch's sturdy form rises from a crossroads near the 9th mile of the Via Flaminia. Its core is built from brick and rubble concrete, faced with travertine, and it originally featured 4 large, identical arched openings, allowing it to function as a covered meeting point or a monumental marker for travelers. But its true, enduring significance lies in its location and its legendary connection to Emperor Constantine. Tradition, supported by archaeological evidence, strongly suggests that this very spot is where Constantine pitched his camp in the autumn of 312 Common Era, just before his fateful march to face his rival Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. It was here, according to ancient sources like Lactantius and Eusebius, that Constantine reportedly experienced his famous vision, a sign in the heavens often interpreted as the Chi-Rho symbol of Christ accompanied by the message, "In this sign conquer." This arch, therefore, is not a celebration of the victory that followed, but a monument to the moment of decision that made it possible. While the massive Arch of Constantine in Rome uses spolia from past emperors to legitimize his rule, the Arch of Malborghetto feels far more intimate. It marks the place where an emperor, on the eve of a civil war that would decide the fate of the empire, underwent a profound spiritual crisis and conversion. Whether one interprets the vision as a divine miracle, a strategic political calculation, or a psychological event, its consequences were world-altering. The arch stands as a silent witness to that private, pivotal night, a permanent stone anchor for a story that would set the course for the Christianization of the Roman world. Centuries after its construction, the arch's story took another extraordinary turn, reflecting the very religious change Constantine had set in motion. In the Middle Ages, the abandoned Roman structure was given a new purpose and a new soul. Its hollow, cavernous interior was transformed into a church dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Builders filled in 2 of its 4 arches to create solid walls for a nave, and a small apse was added to the eastern side. A bell tower was even erected atop the ancient Roman masonry. For generations, it served as a rural parish church, its ancient Roman foundation seamlessly supporting Christian worship. This conversion is a powerful physical metaphor. The very place associated with the moment of Christianity's imperial embrace became an active house of that faith, layering 1,200 years of continuous spiritual significance onto its original military purpose. In more recent times, the structure entered a 3rd chapter of its long life. Deconsecrated as a church, it was meticulously restored and converted into a museum and antiquarium. Today, visitors can walk through its ancient arches and explore exhibits detailing the history of the Via Flaminia and the rich archaeological findings from the surrounding area. This final transformation allows us to appreciate the arch in its entirety, to see the medieval modifications alongside the original Roman brickwork, and to understand its journey through time. The Arch of Malborghetto is no single thing. It is a Roman way station, a hypothesized site of a visionary experience, a medieval church, and a modern museum. It is 1,000 years of history compressed into a single, humble structure, offering a uniquely tangible and layered gateway into the complex and enduring legacy of Constantine's world-changing decision. While the Arch of Malborghetto whispers of empires and visions, our 20th portal brings us to a story of family, memory, and the quiet, enduring power of local influence. In the heart of Verona, a city crisscrossed with Roman ghosts, stands a monument that feels strikingly personal, the Arch of the Gavii. This is not an imperial project commissioned by a distant emperor, nor does it celebrate a military triumph. Instead, it is a grand public declaration of love and status, erected by a single, incredibly wealthy family for one of their own. Constructed in the 1st century of the Common Era, this elegant funerary arch was built by the Gavius family to honor a deceased relative, likely a prominent son or patriarch, and it stands proudly just outside the city's ancient Porta Borsari, marking the beginning of the road that led to their country estates. What makes this arch so remarkable is its elegant independence. In an empire saturated with imagery promoting the imperial cult and the glory of Rome, the Arch of the Gavii is refreshingly free of such references. There are no dedications to emperors, no depictions of captured barbarians, and no symbols of state-sponsored victory. Its entire decorative program is focused on the family itself, celebrating their civic virtues, their sophistication, and their central role in the life of Verona. The arch is built from the warm, local white limestone of Verona, and its design is a masterful example of early imperial architecture, featuring a single, large opening flanked by 4 Corinthian columns on tall pedestals, creating a sense of both grandeur and refined taste. The true soul of the monument, however, is found in its inscription and its sculptural details. The dedicatory plaque, though now partially lost, would have proudly borne the name of the Gavii family and the individual it commemorated. More tellingly, the inner faces of the arch's piers are adorned with life-sized, deeply carved figures. These are not gods or emperors, but portraits of the Gavii family themselves, standing in dignified poses, their togas draped in the fashion of the Roman elite. These statues present the family as embodiments of Roman civic values, educated, prosperous, and deeply invested in their community. They were likely prominent merchants or landowners whose wealth came from the lucrative trade routes that passed through Verona, and this arch was their way of cementing their legacy directly into the urban fabric of the city they helped build. For centuries, the arch's story was one of quiet integration. It was never lost or buried. It simply remained a familiar landmark that successive generations of Veronese lived alongside. Its greatest legacy, however, emerged during the Renaissance, as architects and artists like Fra Giocondo and Michele San Michele looked to their city's Roman past for inspiration. The Arch of the Gavii became an indispensable textbook. Its perfect proportions, harmonious design, and elegant use of the Corinthian order were studied, measured, and meticulously drawn. You can see its direct influence in the monumental city gates and elegant courtyards built throughout Verona in the 15th and 16th centuries. The arch taught Renaissance masters how to achieve grandeur through balance and refinement, rather than sheer scale, proving that the classical ideals of beauty could be adapted for a new age. Today, the arch stands at a busy intersection, no longer marking a road to the countryside but surrounded by the vibrant pulse of modern Verona. Its continued presence offers a different kind of gateway, not into the world of emperors but into the daily life of the Roman municipal elite. It reminds us that the Roman Empire was not just built on legions and emperors, but on the backs of thousands of prosperous local families like the Gavii, who invested their wealth in their cities, competed for prestige, and sought to leave a beautiful, permanent mark on the world. It is a profoundly human monument, a stone embrace from a family reaching across 2,000 years, ensuring that their name and their love for one another would never be forgotten. Tucked away in a quiet corner of Rome, just a stone's throw from the bustling Forum Boarium, stands a monument that feels more like a whispered secret than an imperial proclamation. This is the Arch of the Argentarii, and it tells a story not of state-sponsored triumph, but of private ambition, bitter family feuds, and the dangerous game of politics in ancient Rome. Unlike the grand arches commissioned by emperors, this structure was funded around 204 Common Era by a powerful guild of bankers and cattle, merchants the Argentarii and negotiants Borii Huius Loci to honor the ruling Severan dynasty. But to the modern eye, this arch holds a far more fascinating and sinister tale, one etched into its marble in the form of deliberate erasures and carefully chosen imagery. A stunning possible example of damnatio memoriae playing out not from the top down but from the bottom up. The arch itself is not a freestanding triumphal monument but rather a monumental gateway integrated directly into the fabric of the city. It served as the formal entrance to the Forum Boarium from the Vicus Jugarius, a major street leading into the heart of the commercial district. For the wealthy merchants who paid for it, this was a shrewd investment in both civic pride and business. By erecting a lavish arch dedicated to the imperial family, they were publicly aligning themselves with the seat of power, a move guaranteed to curry favor and elevate their status within the city's lucrative trade networks. The arch's lavish decoration, intricate reliefs covering every surface, was a public display of their wealth and loyalty, a permanent advertisement of their influence to every customer, official, and rival who passed beneath it. But the story takes a dark turn when you examine these reliefs up close. The arch is primarily dedicated to Emperor Septimius Severus, his wife Julia Domna, and their eldest son Caracalla. They are depicted in traditional poses of power and piety, making sacrifices to the gods. The craftsmanship is exquisite, the figures full of life and authority. However, the visual narrative is jarringly incomplete. Two key figures are conspicuously missing: Geta, the younger son of Septimius Severus, and Plautilla, the wife of Caracalla. Their images weren't simply forgotten, they were systematically hacked away, chiseled off the stone with violent precision. In some panels, you can still see the ghostly outlines of where their figures once stood, an empty space screaming of intentional removal. This act of vandalism is a classic sign of damnatio memoriae, the Roman practice of condemning a person's memory after their death. It was an official punishment designed to erase every trace of them from history, from statues and inscriptions to coins. The context here is a bloody dynastic struggle. After Septimius Severus died, his sons Caracalla and Geta were named co-emperors. Their rivalry was so intense they reportedly considered dividing the empire in two. This untenable situation ended in 211 Common Era when Caracalla had his brother murdered in their mother's arms. He then had the Senate declare Geta an enemy of the state, mandating the eradication of his image and name from all public monuments. The erasures on the Arch of the Argentarii are a direct and chilling result of this decree. What makes this arch so uniquely compelling, however, is that it was a private monument. The merchants who funded it were not state officials, they were businessmen. Their swift and thorough compliance with Caracalla's order is a terrifying testament to the absolute reach of imperial power and the climate of fear it fostered. To leave Geta's image intact would have been a dangerous act of dissent, potentially branding the entire guild as treasonous. They had no choice but to literally deface their own expensive gift to protect their lives and livelihoods. The arch thus becomes a stone palimpsest, its surface recording not only the intended honor but also the brutal political reality that followed, a permanent monument to the fickleness of power and the mortal fear it could inspire in even the wealthiest of citizens. Now we step directly into the political heart of the ancient world, the Roman Forum, where our 22nd archway rises with an almost overwhelming presence. The Arch of Septimius Severus is a beast of marble and message, a triple-bayed colossus built not just to celebrate military victory, but to shout a very specific and ultimately tragic story of dynastic ambition to every citizen who passed through this civic space. Erected in 203 Common Era to commemorate the emperor's successful campaigns against the Parthian Empire, this arch is a masterclass in imperial propaganda, its every surface meticulously carved to project an image of unwavering family unity and divine-approved power. Yet for all its grandeur, it stands today as a monument to a lie, its original message forever fractured by the brutal hand of history. To stand before it is to be dwarfed by its scale. Soaring 23 meters high and 25 meters wide, its three archways, a large central passage flanked by two smaller ones, create a massive gateway of white Proconnesian marble. The entire structure rests on a high base, forcing viewers to look up in awe. But its most striking and unique visual feature is the set of four spiral fluted columns that stand against each pier, lifting the eye toward the intricate relief panels above. These columns are not the standard smooth or fluted types. Their deeply carved, twisting grooves create a dynamic sense of movement and luxury, suggesting an almost Eastern opulence that directly references the exotic lands Parthia that the emperor had just conquered. They are a permanent trophy, a piece of captured foreign artistry repurposed to glorify Rome. The narrative of the arch is told in two primary languages, the written word and carved stone. The massive inscription, spanning the entire Attic story on both sides, is one of the longest and most detailed on any Roman monument. In clear, bold letters, it dedicates the arch to Emperor Caesar Lucius Septimius Severus and his two sons, Caracalla and Geta, for having restored the Republic and expanded the dominion of the Roman people through their victories in the East. It proudly lists their full titles, including Parthicus Arabicus and Parthicus Adiabanicus, honorifics proclaiming their conquest of Arab and Adiabene territories within the Parthian Empire. This text was meant to be the final, authoritative word on the Severan dynasty, a father and his two sons united in purpose and destined to rule together in harmony. This written fiction is supported by a breathtaking visual chronicle that wraps around the arch, 4 large sculpted panels, each standing nearly 4 meters tall, depict in vivid detail the key moments of the Parthian campaigns. We see the Roman army on the move, setting up camp with meticulous precision. We witness the siege of Seleucia and Ctesiphon, with Roman soldiers scaling walls and engaging the enemy. The energy in these scenes is chaotic yet controlled, a testament to the legion's discipline and the emperor's strategic genius. Most importantly, Septimius Severus and his sons are omnipresent, overseeing battles, addressing their troops, and accepting the surrender of Parthian leaders. In these carved stories, they are an inseparable trio, a united front leading Rome to a new golden age. But the story etched in stone could not survive the venomous reality of human ambition. The grand inscription tells a chilling second story, one added after the fact. Look closely and you will see clear, rectangular patches where the marble has been cut away. These are the scars of damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory. After Septimius Severus died, his sons Caracalla and Geta were named co-emperors, but their rivalry was instant and lethal. In 211 Common Era, Caracalla had his younger brother murdered, dragged from the arms of their mother Julia Domna and assassinated. He then ordered Geta's name and image to be erased from all public monuments across the empire. The officials tasked with this grim duty on the Arch of Septimius Severus were thorough but not perfect. They chiseled out every mention of Geta from the grand inscription, leaving those glring Chinese letter spots in the text. They went around the arch and removed his figure from the family scenes in the reliefs. In one particularly poignant panel showing the imperial family, you can still see the ghostly outline of where Geta once stood, an empty space between his father and brother that speaks louder than any statue. The arch's triumphant proclamation of family unity was brutally falsified, transforming the entire monument into a stark and permanent record of fraternal hatred and the fragility of political power. It stands not just as a celebration of victory over foreign enemies, but as a chilling memorial to a civil war within one family, a stone lie that we can still see through 2,000 years later. We've already stood before the Arch of Titus and felt the weight of its imperial triumph, but to truly understand this monument, we must look closer past the obvious narrative of victory and into the shadows where deeper secrets and more complex legacies reside. The famous spoils panel showing the loot from Jerusalem is a masterpiece of stone, but it may also be a subtle piece of political subversion. Look at the angle of the golden menorah as it's carried by the soldiers. It's tilted forward almost precariously, as if it could slip from their grasp at any moment. Some scholars see this not as an error by the carver, but as a deliberate choice, a quiet, visual hint that even in the moment of greatest triumph, the sacred can never be truly possessed or controlled by temporal power. It's a fleeting suggestion of humility carved into a monument of absolute pride. This arch's influence did not end with the Roman Empire. Its form and purpose echoed through the centuries, directly inspiring one of the most famous modern monuments in the world. When Napoleon Bonaparte sought to create a symbol for his own imperial ambitions in 19th century Paris, he looked directly to the Arch of Titus as his model. The resulting Arc de Triomphe, while vastly larger, follows the same essential blueprint: a single, massive barrel vault, sculpted panels celebrating military victory, and a commanding presence at the head of a grand processional way. Both arches were designed to funnel the energy of a triumphant army and to transform military might into an enduring political statement. The connection is so profound that it creates a direct architectural lineage, a thread of imperial ambition stretching from the sack of Jerusalem to the Champs-Élysées. But the most powerful legacy of the Arch of Titus is not in its form, but in its enduring emotional charge, a charge that has meant profoundly different things to different peoples across 2 millennia. For centuries of Jewish tradition, this arch was a symbol of such profound trauma that many would refuse to walk beneath it. It commemorated the destruction of the Second Temple, the central heart of Jewish faith and national identity, and the beginning of a 2,000-year exile. To pass under this arch was to walk through the very gateway of their sorrow. Yet, in a breathtaking historical turn, the arch was symbolically reclaimed in the modern era. After Israeli paratroopers captured the Western Wall in 1967 during the Six-Day War, many of them made a pilgrimage to the Arch of Titus in Rome. For them, standing beneath the carved menorah that had been taken from their ancestral home, the monument was no longer just a marker of exile. It had become a symbol of an impossible return, a testament to their survival and resilience. For the Romans who built it, however, the arch's meaning was equally complex but entirely different. While it celebrated a military victory, the Jewish war was not a popular conflict. It was a brutal, costly, and distant campaign fought during a time of tremendous instability in Rome, just after the chaotic year of the four emperors. The triumph it depicts was as much about solidifying the new Flavian dynasty's legitimacy as it was about conquering Judea. The spoils from Jerusalem funded the construction of the Colosseum, making the arch a permanent receipt for the most famous amphitheater in the world. Every citizen who enjoyed the games there was implicitly connected to this victory. The arch, therefore, wasn't just for the soldiers, it was a powerful piece of domestic propaganda, convincing the Roman people that the pain of civil war was over and that a new, strong, and prosperous era was beginning, all paid for by the conquest of a foreign land. This one structure stands at the crossroads of these two powerful, painful, and parallel histories, one of a people shattered and the other of an empire reforged, forever linking their destinies in marble. But to truly grasp the revolutionary nature of the Ishtar Gate, we have to step back from its reconstructed majesty and into the shoes of the ancient artisans who brought it to life. The iconic lapis lazuli blue that defines the gate wasn't a simple paint or dye. It was an astonishing feat of ancient chemical engineering, a color literally baked into the very fabric of the structure. Each of the tens of thousands of bricks used was meticulously molded from clay and then coated with a secret glaze recipe, the precise formula for which remains a mystery even today. We know the brilliant blue came from cobalt, a mineral that had to be carefully sourced and processed, while the vibrant yellows and whites were achieved using other complex compounds. These glazed bricks were then fired in immense kilns at incredibly precise temperatures. A slight miscalculation in the heat or the glaze mixture would result in a flawed, discolored brick, meaning the entire production process demanded a level of chemical knowledge and quality control that seems almost modern in its sophistication. This wasn't mere decoration, it was high technology in the ancient world, a deliberate and dazzling display of Babylonian scientific and artistic supremacy. The result of this painstaking work was a structure that would have been utterly alien and overwhelming in its ancient context. In a world built primarily from mud, brick, stone, and wood, the sight of a building that seemed to be made from solid, gleaming precious stone would have been nothing short of miraculous. As the sun moved across the sky, the gate would have come alive, its surface shimmering and shifting in the light, the figures of the bulls and Mushasu dragons appearing to stride with a life of their own. This was the intentional psychological impact Nebuchadnezzar sought, to stun visitors and subjects alike into a state of awe, to overwhelm their senses and leave no doubt about the divine right and immense power of the king who commanded such wonders. The gate was the opening act of a grand theatrical production, setting the stage for the spectacle that was the city of Babylon itself. And that spectacle reached its peak during the annual New Year's festival, when the Ishtar Gate served as the starting point for the most important religious procession in the Babylonian calendar. The processional way was not a simple road. It was a monumental, enclosed corridor over half a mile long, with walls stretching 15 meters high that were themselves decorated with over 120 glazed brick lions on a background of that same radiant blue. Imagine the scene. The statues of the gods would be carried out of the city's temples and paraded along this sacred path, accompanied by the king, his priests, and thousands of citizens. The air would have been thick with the smell of incense and the sound of chanting, all contained within this towering, colorful canyon of mythic imagery. To walk this path was to be immersed in a story of divine power and royal authority, a sensory experience designed to reinforce the cosmic order and the king's central role within it. The Ishtar Gate was the magnificent, unmissable entrance to this entire ritual, the threshold between the mundane world and a realm of gods and kings. This breathtaking monument might have been lost to us forever, crumbled into dust, if not for the ambitious excavation led by German archaeologist Robert Koldewey at the turn of the 20th century. Between 1899 and 1917, his team undertook the mammoth task of uncovering the gate, which was buried under centuries of accumulated earth. What they found was extraordinary. While the gate structure had collapsed, thousands of the glazed bricks had survived intact, their colors still vibrant after more than 2 millennia underground. Recognizing the immense value and fragility of the find, Koldewey made a decision that remains one of the most controversial in the history of archaeology. He secured permission from the Ottoman authorities, who then controlled Iraq, to transport a vast majority of the excavated fragments, thousands of crates containing tens of thousands of bricks, back to Germany. This act of preservation was also an act of appropriation, a product of the colonial era's mindset towards cultural heritage. The removal of the gate sparked immediate debate, a debate that has only intensified over the decades. Was this a heroic rescue mission, saving the gate from certain decay and looting, or was it a profound act of cultural dispossession? The painstaking reconstruction that followed in Berlin's Pergamon Museum was a technical marvel in itself, a decades-long puzzle of sorting and assembling the ancient fragments. The result allows millions of visitors to experience a version of the gate's overwhelming presence, something that would be impossible at the original site in Babylon, where only the foundations remain. Yet, this achievement comes with a heavy cost. For Iraq, the gate's absence is a lasting symbol of a fractured heritage. The empty site in Babylon is a ghost, a negative space where one of the nation's greatest treasures once stood, now residing thousands of miles away. The Ishtar Gate, therefore, exists in 2 places at once, as a breathtaking archaeological exhibit in Berlin and as a powerful, lingering question about ownership, colonialism, and the right to cultural memory in its homeland. Now, let's return to that windswept Andean plain and look more closely at the Gateway of the Sun, because its true magic lies not just in its mysterious presence, but in its precise conversation with the cosmos. The most compelling theory surrounding this solitary portal is that it functioned as a sophisticated and massive calendar, a stone computer for tracking time itself. The 48 figures that adorn the frieze are the key to this puzzle. Some researchers propose they represent a 48-week lunar calendar, while others see a correlation to the 48 24-hour periods that make up 2 days in the Tiwanaku calendar system, a complex method of timekeeping that interwove solar and lunar cycles. The central figure, then, becomes more than a deity. He transforms into the axis mundi, the central pole around which the very machinery of time revolves. This astronomical function is dramatically confirmed by the gateway's precise orientation. It is aligned almost perfectly along an east-west axis. During the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, which occurs around June 21st, the rising sun would have shot its first rays directly through the center of the archway, flooding the carved central god with a brilliant, fleeting light. This was no accident. For an agricultural society living at an altitude where a single frost could destroy a year's crops, accurately predicting the solstices and equinoxes was a matter of survival. It dictated planting, harvesting, and the timing of religious ceremonies designed to ensure fertility and ward off disaster. The gateway was their observatory, their almanac, and their direct line to the cycles that governed their existence. And this is where the local Aymara cosmology adds a profound layer of meaning to the cold stone. The figure at the center, often called the staff god by archaeologists, is believed by many scholars to be a representation of Viracocha, the supreme creator god in the Andean pantheon. Viracocha was not just a distant deity, he was the bringer of civilization, the teacher of arts and agriculture, who emerged from Lake Titicaca to create the world and all its people before walking across the sea. The rays emanating from his head could symbolize his divine, life-giving power, while the staffs he holds might represent his authority or his role as a steadfast pillar of the universe. In this interpretation, the gateway is not merely a calendar, it is a divine portrait, a permanent image of the Creator himself, forever framing the celestial events he set into motion. The running figures streaming toward Viracocha deepen this spiritual narrative. They are not merely marking time, they are in a state of reverence, perhaps representing celestial bodies, ancestral spirits, or different ethnic groups of the empire, all paying homage to their creator. Some myths even speak of a great deluge, after which Viracocha emerged to create a new humanity from stone, breathing life into them and sending them out into the world through sacred portals in the earth. Could the gateway of the sun be a depiction of this very event, a literal doorway through which the new race of humans entered the world overseen by their creator? This transforms the archway from a scientific tool into a Genesis story carved in rock, a permanent memorial to the very origin of humanity according to Andean belief. Ultimately, the gateway of the sun refuses to be easily categorized. It likely served all these purposes simultaneously. For the Tiwanaku, astronomy, agriculture, spirituality, and mythology were not separate disciplines. They were a single, intertwined understanding of the universe. The gateway was the point where all these concepts converged. It was a tool for priests to read the stars, a symbol for farmers to understand the seasons, and a sacred threshold for connecting with the divine. It stands as a testament to a world where the earthly and the celestial were in constant, harmonious dialogue, and where humanity's place was to observe, honor, and participate in that eternal, majestic dance. We must revisit the colossal Arch of Constantine, not just as a monument, but as a complex archaeological puzzle. The practice of reusing older architectural pieces, known as spolia, wasn't invented by Constantine, but his arch represents its most ambitious and politically charged application. To understand why he draped his victory in the art of past emperors, we need to look at the precarious state of the empire in the early 4th century. Constantine had just emerged victorious from a brutal civil war against Maxentius, a conflict that fractured the Roman world. He was, in many ways, a usurper, a general from the periphery who had seized power in the capital by force. His legitimacy was far from certain, and the Senate, while dedicating the arch to him, was likely filled with nobles who had previously supported his rival. This is where the genius, or perhaps the desperation, of the spolia becomes clear. By taking magnificent panels from the monuments of Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, emperors remembered as the good emperors of Rome's golden age, Constantine was making a powerful visual argument. He wasn't just looting art, he was looting legitimacy. He was physically attaching his image and his reign to the most celebrated figures in Roman history. A citizen looking up at those exquisite 2nd century reliefs would unconsciously associate Constantine with the military prowess of Trajan, the wisdom and cosmopolitanism of Hadrian, and the philosophical virtue of Marcus Aurelius. It was a form of political time travel, a way for Constantine to bypass recent turmoil and position himself as the direct heir and restorer of a long-lost golden age, rather than the creator of a new and uncertain order. The stylistic clash on the arch is deliberate and telling. The new Constantinian frieze that wraps around the base is carved in a distinctly different style from the older spolia. The figures are more static, their bodies often hidden behind heavy, schematic drapery. Their faces are large-eyed and expressive, but they lack the naturalistic depth and fluid movement of the older sculptures. This isn't necessarily a sign of artistic decline, it's a shift in purpose. The art of Constantine's era was less concerned with realistic portrayal and more with conveying hierarchy and symbolic power. The emperor is always the largest figure, his authority communicated through his central placement and scale rather than through individualized action or emotion. The older spolia provided the classical glamour, while the new panels delivered a clear, hierarchical message suited to the changing times. This arch, therefore, is far more than a celebration of a battle won. It is a monumental bridge between two worlds. In its form, it is the last great triumphal arch of classical Rome, but in its message and method, it points directly toward the medieval world that would follow. It reflects an empire that was increasingly looking backward to its past greatness for stability, even as its foundations were shifting. The use of spolia can be seen as an admission that the present could not match the artistic and political achievements of the past, so it had to repurpose them. The arch stands at the crossroads of history, marking the end of the classical era and the hesitant, calculated beginning of something new, built with the pieces of what once was. It is a stone metaphor for an empire in transition, using the glory of its greatest heroes to conceal the cracks of its own uncertain future. To truly appreciate the Arch of Augustus in Rimini, we must look past its grand facade and into the brilliant minds of the Roman engineers who designed it. The arch's incredible longevity, standing strong for over 2,000 years, is no accident. It was built using a technique called opus quadratum, a method involving massive, perfectly cut blocks of local Istrian limestone. These blocks were so precisely shaped that they fit together without any mortar, relying solely on their immense weight and perfect geometry to hold the structure together. This wasn't just about saving on materials, it was a calculated decision for resilience. In an earthquake-prone region like northern Italy, a rigid, mortared structure would crack and crumble. The arch's dry stone construction allows it to flex and sway ever so slightly during seismic activity, absorbing the energy of tremors without collapsing. The engineers even angled the stones slightly inward as they rose, creating a self-buttressing effect that channels gravity down through the center of the monument, making it incredibly stable. This arch wasn't built for a decade, it was built for millennia, a testament to Roman understanding of materials, physics, and the unforgiving test of time. Its position in the urban landscape was equally deliberate and strategic. The arch didn't just mark the end of the road, it was the catalyst for an entire city's growth and identity. As the formal northern terminus of the Via Flaminia, it was the first thing any traveler saw when arriving from Rome and the last thing they saw when departing. This made it the ideal location for the city's customs and tax collection point. Officials would have been stationed here to monitor the flow of goods, olive oil, wine, timber, and slaves entering and leaving the empire's heartland. But its influence extended far beyond commerce. The arch's placement dictated the entire street plan of the Roman city of Ariminum. The main street, the Decumanus Maximus, began directly at the arch's threshold and ran straight through the city center to the harbor, creating a powerful visual and physical axis that organized all subsequent development. Temples, markets, and public buildings were aligned to this grand entranceway, making the arch the undeniable focal point from which the entire city was oriented and experienced. Symbolically, this archway was the ultimate threshold, a powerful psychological marker between two worlds. For a Roman citizen traveling north from the capital, passing under this arch meant leaving the secure, fully Romanized heartland of Italy and venturing into the more recently conquered and still wild provinces of Cisalpine Gaul. It was a gateway to opportunity, but also to potential danger and the unknown. For a Gallic merchant or a local tribesman approaching from the north, however, passing through the arch was an act of entering the civilized world. It represented submission to Roman law, access to Roman markets, and the beginning of the long journey to the epicenter of power. The arch was a permanent stone embodiment of the Roman concept of limen, a sacred boundary that signifies both an end and a beginning. It didn't just separate geography, it separated states of being, marking the transition from the provincial to the Roman, from the chaotic frontier to the ordered world of the empire. The arch's lasting legacy is etched into the modern city of Rimini itself. Unlike many ancient monuments that sit isolated as ruins, the Arch of Augustus is still a fully functioning gateway. Cars, bicycles, and pedestrians pass through its ancient opening every day, seamlessly integrating a 2,000-year-old structure into the rhythm of contemporary life. The modern street still follows the path of the original Roman road, and the arch continues to define the city's layout, just as it did in the 1st century before the Common Era. This continuous, unbroken use makes it one of the most organic and living monuments from the ancient world. It's not a relic behind a fence, it's a vital part of the city's circulatory system. To stand beneath it is to stand in a direct line of countless generations who have done the same, from sandaled Roman legionnaires and dusty merchants to modern Italians on their way to work, all connected by the enduring ambition of an emperor and the timeless genius of his engineers. We've already felt the imposing presence of the Lion Gate, but to truly appreciate this portal, we need to look closer at the stones themselves, the very fabric of its legend. The gate is the most famous example of what archaeologists call Cyclopean masonry, a term that evokes the mythical one-eyed giants, the Cyclopes. When later Greeks, including historians like Pausanias, looked upon these ruins, they saw walls built from enormous limestone boulders, some weighing several tons, fitted together with such incredible precision that no mortar was needed. The sheer scale of the work seemed impossible for human hands. They concluded that only a race of giants like the Cyclopes who forged Zeus's thunderbolts could have lifted and placed these monstrous stones. This wasn't just a fanciful name, it was a genuine attempt to explain the inexplicable, a testament to how awe-inspiring and advanced Mycenaean engineering appeared even centuries after their civilization had collapsed. The construction technique was as brilliant as it was brutal. Mycenaean engineers didn't quarry these massive stones into perfect rectangles. Instead, they carefully selected naturally shaped boulders and then painstakingly worked them using stone hammers and bronze chisels to create intricate, interlocking joints. They would chip away at the edges of each boulder until it had multiple contact points with its neighbors, creating a stable, puzzle-like structure that was incredibly resistant to both earthquakes and siege attacks. The weight of the stones alone provided immense stability, and the irregular, jagged faces of the blocks helped to deflect projectiles. Walking up to the Lion Gate, you can still see this technique in the surrounding walls, a seemingly chaotic jumble of colossal rocks that somehow forms a perfectly coherent, indestructible whole. It was a defiant statement of power designed to intimidate any approaching enemy long before they ever reached the gate itself. But the gate's role extends far beyond its formidable defenses. It is the key that unlocked an entire lost world. For centuries, Mycenae was little more than a name in Homer's epics, a city of legend whose real existence was doubted. The discovery and excavation of the Lion Gate in the 19th century by archaeologists like Heinrich Schliemann changed everything. As they cleared the earth from the massive lintel and those towering lionesses, they weren't just uncovering a ruin, they were proving that the Trojan War's Agamemnon was more than a myth. The artifacts found in the royal shaft graves just inside the citadel, exquisite gold death masks, intricately inlaid bronze daggers, and vast quantities of wealth, confirmed a sophisticated, powerful, and wealthy civilization that dominated the Aegean during the late Bronze Age. This gateway, therefore, is the physical threshold to the Mycenaean world. It leads into a complex of ruins that includes the royal palace with its central megaron or throne room and the famous grave circles. Every element of its design, from the cyclopean walls to the strategic positioning on a high hill, speaks of a society obsessed with security, hierarchy, and display. The rulers inside were warrior kings who controlled vast trade networks, their wealth built on bronze, gold, and military might. The Lion Gate was their public face, a blend of raw, intimidating power and sophisticated religious symbolism, designed to proclaim their divine right to rule and their ability to protect their own. It stands not as an isolated monument, but as the enduring stone heart of a civilization that provided the historical foundation for the entire epic cycle of Greek mythology. Yet to fully grasp the profound cultural negotiation happening with this arch, we must look beyond its marble to the man it honors. Emperor Hadrian was a true Philhellene, a passionate admirer of Greek culture in an empire that had centuries earlier conquered Greece. He didn't just appreciate Greek art from a distance, he spoke Greek fluently, adopted a Greek beard style that became his trademark, and was initiated into the Eleusinian Mysteries, one of the most sacred religious rites in ancient Greece. His immense investment in Athens, completing the colossal temple of Olympian Zeus, building a new library, an aqueduct, and an entire new city quarter wasn't merely urban renewal. It was an act of genuine reverence, an attempt to restore the faded glory of the civilization he so admired. The arch, likely funded by the grateful Athenian people, was their monumental thank you, but it was also a deeply symbolic gesture, acknowledging his role not as a foreign conqueror but as a generous benefactor and a fellow devotee of Hellenic ideals. The two famous inscriptions carved into the arch's entablature are the key to unlocking its complex message. On the northwest side, facing the Acropolis and the ancient Agora, it reads, "This is Athens, the ancient city of Theseus." On the southeast side, facing Hadrian's new construction projects, it declares, "This is the city of Hadrian and not of Theseus." For a long time, this was interpreted as a stark, arrogant declaration of a city divided, with Hadrian claiming his new section as superior. A more nuanced and widely accepted modern interpretation, however, reveals a far more sophisticated dialogue. The first inscription is a nod of profound respect to the legendary, heroic past of Athens, acknowledging its foundational myth. The second is almost certainly not a statement from Hadrian himself, but a dedication to him from the Athenian people. It names him as their new founder, a second Theseus for a new era. This wasn't an erasure of history, but a layering of it, framing Hadrian as the latest in a long line of great leaders who had shaped the city's destiny. This perspective transforms the arch from a simple boundary marker into a ceremonial gateway between two different conceptions of time and identity. To walk through it from the old city toward the Olympian was to move from the world of myth, classical philosophy, and the golden age of Pericles into the vibrant, modern reality of a city revitalized by imperial favor. It was a physical passage that also represented a psychological one, an acceptance of Roman rule that was uniquely packaged in a celebration of Greek heritage. The Athenians, masters of diplomacy and cultural memory, were adept at navigating their subjugation. By honoring Hadrian in this way, they secured his continued patronage while simultaneously reinforcing their own undiminished status as the cultural capital of the world. They weren't being swallowed by the empire, they were gracefully, shrewdly inviting the emperor to join their story. Therefore, the Arch of Hadrian is far more than a triumphal monument or a simple gate. It is a permanent stone record of a successful cultural partnership. It represents a rare moment where Roman power was expressed not through overwhelming force, but through admiration and investment. It shows a conquered people leveraging their immense cultural capital to shape their relationship with their ruler on their own terms. The arch doesn't shout of victory, it whispers of a mutually beneficial exchange where Athens received a new lease on life, and Hadrian received the one thing his military might could not buy: legitimacy as a cultured statesman and a revered figure in the very heart of the civilization he sought to emulate. It stands as a testament to the idea that the most enduring power isn't always seized, but is sometimes gracefully offered and gratefully received. While the grand arches of emperors and empires often dominate the spotlight, our 30th and final portal reminds us that the most enduring legacies are sometimes built on a far more intimate scale. Tucked away on a quiet street in the Croatian city of Pula, the Arch of the Sergii stands not as a monument to imperial conquest, but to familial love, civic pride, and the quiet social climbing of a local elite. Constructed around 27 before the Common Era by the wealthy widow Salvia Postuma Sergii, this elegant gateway was a profoundly personal tribute to three male relatives: her husband, father-in-law, and brother-in-law, who had served with distinction in the Roman legions during the turbulent final days of the Republic. Its purpose was dual: to honor their memory and to publicly cement the Sergii family's elevated status in their thriving hometown. The arch's breathtaking beauty is its first language, a clear declaration of the family's sophistication and worldly taste. Unlike the muscular, assertive style of earlier Roman monuments, the Arch of the Sergii is a masterpiece of the Hellenistic Baroque style, a flowing, graceful form that feels more Greek than Roman. It was originally one wing of the city's Grand Porta Aurea, or Golden Gate, and its entire surface is a canvas of exquisite detail. Fluted Corinthian columns frame the central opening, their capitals a delicate explosion of carved acanthus leaves. Above, a continuous frieze depicts a joyful procession of putti, or baby cherubs, driving ox carts and holding up lavish garlands. But the most captivating elements are the life-sized winged victories carved into the inner piers. These are not the stern, formal figures of state propaganda. They are fluid, almost ethereal beings, their drapery seeming to flutter in an unseen breeze, their poses dynamic and full of life. Every inch of this stone was carved by artists schooled in the finest Hellenistic traditions, signaling that the Sergii were not just wealthy, but also culturally refined patrons of the arts. This architectural statement was a powerful tool for social advancement. The three men honored Lucius Sergius Lepidus, his father, and his brother, had all served in the 29th Legion under Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, during the civil wars that followed Julius Caesar's assassination. By erecting this lavish monument just as Octavian was consolidating his power as Augustus, Salvia Postuma Sergii was performing a brilliant act of political alignment. She was publicly demonstrating her family's loyalty to the winning side, tying their local prestige directly to the new imperial regime in Rome. The Arch announced to every citizen and visitor that the Sergii were not just a powerful local family. They were key supporters of the most powerful man in the world, their influence extending all the way to the heart of the empire. Perhaps the most resonant feature is the dedicatory inscription that runs across the top of the arch. It reads, Salvia Postuma Sergii de Sopeknia, Salvia Postuma Sergii at her own expense. In a world where public monuments were almost exclusively the domain of men, this simple phrase is a powerful assertion of female agency. While the monument celebrated the military and political achievements of her male relatives, it was her wealth, her decision, and her determination that made it a permanent part of the city's landscape. She ensured that the Sergii name would be remembered for millennia, but she did so by inscribing her own role in that legacy just as permanently into the stone. The Arch's incredible journey through time is a testament to its enduring value. Unlike so many ancient structures, it was never fully buried or forgotten. It remained a functioning part of Pula's cityscape, weathering centuries of regional conflicts, shifting empires, and changing architectural tastes. Its greatest legacy, however, emerged during the Renaissance. As artists and architects like Fra Giocondo and Michele San Michele searched for classical models to inspire their work, they found a perfect textbook in the Arch of the Sergii. Its harmonious proportions, elegant Corinthian order, and exquisite sculptural details were meticulously studied and measured. You can see its direct influence in the graceful city gates and courtyards built throughout Venice and the surrounding region, a quiet echo of this Pula family's pride helping to shape the aesthetic of the Renaissance. Standing before it today, the Arch of the Sergii offers a different kind of gateway, not into the world of emperors, but into the heart of a Roman family. It speaks of love, memory, and the universal desire to be remembered. It reminds us that history is not just made on vast battlefields and in imperial palaces, but also in the ambitions of local merchants, the patronage of wealthy widows, and the skillful hands of artists who turned stone into something approaching poetry. It is a final, poignant reminder that every archway we have walked through on this journey, no matter how grand, was ultimately built by human hands for human reasons, carrying human stories that, against all odds, have somehow managed to whisper to us across 2,000 years. From the roaring lionesses of Mycenae to the celestial calendar of Tiwanaku, from the polished marble of Roman triumph to the glazed brilliance of Babylonian power, our journey through these 30 portals has been nothing short of an epic voyage across continents and millennia. We've stood in the shadow of arches built to glorify emperors and those erected to honor a single family. We've decoded propaganda carved in stone and felt the chill of names deliberately erased from history. Each structure, in its own unique language of architecture and artistry, has served as a permanent gateway, inviting us to step across the threshold and into the heart of the civilization that built it. These archways were far more than functional entries or simple monuments. They were the ultimate expressions of human ambition. They were statements of power designed to intimidate and awe. They were complex calendars aligning with the heavens to track the sacred dance of the stars. They were spiritual conduits believed to be passages for gods and a means to commune with the divine. They were tools of political persuasion, weaving narratives of victory and legitimacy into their very fabric. And perhaps most beautifully, they were acts of profound love and remembrance, ensuring that a name, a family, or a deed would never be forgotten by the relentless march of time. They represent the pinnacle of engineering, the heights of artistic achievement, and the deepest yearnings of the human spirit, all frozen in a single, elegant curve of stone. This exploration reveals a universal truth that connects us to every hand that laid these stones. The desire to build something that lasts, to create a mark on the world that whispers our story to future generations. Whether it was an emperor commanding a colossal arch for his triumph or a widow funding a graceful gateway for her loved ones, the impulse is the same. These arches are that whisper, now amplified across centuries, reaching us today as a shout from the past, filled with drama, innovation, faith, and power. But our list of 30 is just the beginning. The ancient world is dotted with countless other breathtaking arches, each with its own story waiting to be discovered. Perhaps your favorite is the majestic Roman arch in the French town of Glanum, or the intricate Durga Gate in India, or maybe the hauntingly beautiful ruins of a forgotten gateway you've encountered on your own travels. The conversation doesn't end here. I will be absolutely thrilled to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me about the ancient archways that have captured your imagination, that have made you feel that incredible shift in the air as you stepped through them. And if you have the opportunity, I urge you to go and experience that feeling for yourself. Walk through the Arch of Titus and feel the weight of history. Gaze up at the towering presence of the Ishtar Gate in Berlin and let its dazzling blue transport you. Stand before the lonely gateway of the sun and listen to the wind carry its ancient mysteries. There is no substitute for being there, for placing your hand on the same sun-warmed stone that countless others have touched before you, and feeling that direct, tangible connection to the vast, incredible tapestry of human history. These portals are waiting. All you have to do is take the first step.